Welcome. Today we'll be speaking about biblical geography, more specific, the orientation of ancient Israelite geography. Now there is a great deal, a ton of geographical information in the Bible. What I mean by that is there are hundreds and hundreds of place names, different paths, different routes, mountains, seas, and so on and so forth. Just take a look at these 3 verses from the book of Joshua. And their southern boundary ran from the end of the Dead Sea, from the bay that faces southward. It goes out southward of the ascent of Akrabim, passes along to Tzin, and goes up south of Kadesh Barnea, along by Chetzron, up to Adar, makes a turn to Karka, passes along to Atzmon, goes out by the Wadi of Egypt, and comes to its end at the sea. This shall be your south boundary. In these verses alone, we have 10 different geographical sites. That's a great deal of information. But the sad thing is that the ancient Israelites, even though they bequeathed us the Bible, they never gave us a map. We have no map from ancient Israel. So, all that means is that for the past few centuries and even the past few millennia, people have been making maps in order to better understand the biblical world. Let's take a look at one from 1759. It's by Tobias Conrad Lauder. And what it shows you is the land of Israel, and it's divided up into different color sections. And each color represents a different tribal unit as understood from the biblical geography. And there are other hints of the Bible in it, such as the cities of Sodom and Amorah, Sodom and Gomorrah, buried at the bottom of the Dead Sea underneath the waves. Now, as time and technology got better and better, and the printing press got better and better, people can easily print Bible maps, and almost every single Bible is going to come with a Bible map. Here I have the HarperCollins Study Bible, and in the back there are a number of different biblical maps. And what they show you are the land of Israel, and the different topographies, and also it shows you where the tribes may have lived at certain times, and the geography of certain events, and so on and so forth. Now, there are a number of excellent books all about biblical geography. Just to name one, here's a map from the Sacred Bridge by the late Anson Rainey and my friend Steve Notley. And in this map, what we can see is that the Israelites are living in the land, and the judges from the book of Judges, the locations of each of those judges are listed. Now, as technology gets better and better, people like you and me can make maps very easily with Google Earth. And what we're looking at here is the land of Israel with 2 sites named Dan and Beersheba, because the Bible often says that the Israelites lived in between Dan and Beersheba. Dan in the north, Beersheba in the south. And with the click of a button, I can list hundreds, actually every single biblical place is now on the map. I can zoom in, take a look at the topography around the places. I can zoom out, see the general region. And if I want, I can play around and make my own fun maps to better understand the geography of biblical Israel. Now, there's something that all these maps from the 1700s up until Google Earth share in common, is that they are oriented to the north. They point north. And the reason for that is the compass. Once the compass became popular among sailors in the Middle Ages, then became more and more popular, map makers started using the compass to make maps pointed north, where today almost every single map you encounter is going to be pointed north. So all of these maps are pointed north, and for that reason, all the maps, Bible maps of ancient Israel are pointed north. But how would an ancient Israelite make a map? If an ancient Israelite were to get in a time machine and make a map, what would it look like today? And in order to understand that, we need to look at some of the terms from ancient Israel. So in Hebrew, the most important geographic term is kedem, which means east. And it also means before, meaning facing you. Something that is facing you is kedem, it is before you. So your orientation is to the east. And the reason that being is because the sun comes from the east. And the sun would have been the most important thing in your geographic world. The sun would come up every day from the east, and that's the start. The start of the day, that's also the start of the directions. Another term for east is also Mizrach, which means sunrise, because that's where the sun rises. So, Kedem is our most important term. Now let's move on to the west. The west is known as Ma'arav, sunset, because that's where the sun sets. It's also known as Yama, where the sea is, because that's where the Mediterranean Sea is. But perhaps more importantly, it's also called Achor, what is behind you. What is behind you? Meaning the west is behind you. The east is in front of you. The west is behind you. Now, with this orientation, our right-hand side is going to be the south. And that's the exact meaning of the word south in Hebrew. The word for south in Hebrew is yamin, which means right hand. And it's also Teiman, which has that right hand in it, Yamin in it. Teiman, which means south. Another term is also Darom, the south, and Negev, where the Negev desert is. Now, the only direction left is Tzafon, north. Now, Tzafon was a name of a mountain range in Syria. It's not so important in terms of orienting ourselves, but there are some texts in the book of Job which suggest that the word small, left hand, can also mean north. Now, putting all this together, let's get our ancient Israelite flying in the time machine from ancient Israel to today using Google Maps. The ancient Israelite would see Dan and Beersheba and make one nice switch, reorient the land so that he or she is facing to the east. And what that means is that the east is in front of you, the west is behind you, the south is to the right of you, and the north is to the left of you. Now, Dan and Beersheba, the two extremes of ancient Israel, are no longer above you and below you. From this orientation, they're to one side to the other. And this different orientation, although you might say it's negligible, let's just look how different the world looks when we zoom out. What we're actually looking at here is Africa, here is Europe, and here is Asia, and here is Saudi Arabia. And so what we see here is just the world looks completely different from this viewpoint. That's how an Israelite would have made a map. Now, there are a few maps that have this orientation, and they're easier to find in older and older maps because the compass was less and less important. Let's take a look here at Vatican Grid Map A from about 1320 of the Common Era. So what we're actually looking at here is at the bottom is this nice green carpet, which is actually the Mediterranean Sea, and you are hovering over the Mediterranean Sea looking at the land of Israel. And right in front of you, looking straight ahead, is east. So your orientation is to the east, it's to the sun, it is to sunrise. A much older example, and the most relevant map for our purposes, is the Medba map, an ancient church mosaic floor from Medba from about the 6th century of the Common Era. Now, there's so many reasons that this map is amazing, but one of the cool details is just notice the fish in the Jordan River made out of mosaic tiles. Also notice the boat on the Dead Sea. Really cool things like that. Now, for us, it's important the orientation of the writing, which tells you the cities. The orientation of the writing suggests that you are facing east. You are facing east, looking over Jerusalem, over the Jordan River, into the far east. That is your orientation because Kedem is east. It's what's before you. It's where the sun comes from. And the west is Achor. It's what's behind you. And the south is Yamin. It's what's to your right. And the north is Tzafon. It's what's to your left. It's Simol. So we now understand how an ancient Israelite would make a map of the land of Israel, which is really interesting. Does it change any of the geography of all the maps in the world that we have today? No, obviously not. But all it does is makes us realize just how different we are from the ancient Israelites, that we're one left turn, 190-degree rotation, 1/4 off from their view of the world, which is very different than our northern-centric view of the world. If you enjoy this kind of study and you would like to take classes about the ancient Israelites, about biblical texts, about archaeology, about geography, come take a class with me or a class with one of my fantastic colleagues at biblicalculture.org, biblicalculture.org, where you can learn with me one-on-one in a class, or you can even take a recording and watch a class from the comfort of your own home or phone, anywhere you are. So thanks for watching. I look forward to seeing you next time at biblicalculture.org.